Alright, welcome back to another video flight simulator. I'm going to make this more of a short one, and I haven't actually never been here, but I'm going to just fly around Guam a little bit, and see how the Air Force Base looks there, and kind of look a little bit of the island, talk a little bit more of the modern history, and so forth. One thing I do want to show before I load this up, there's this cool thing that I bet a lot of you don't know this unless you're truly like a flight geek like me. So between Guam and Hawaii, I mean, Guam is like the biggest island in Micronesia, so this is like Micronesia here. United Airlines does call a thing, I think it, well, this is before COVID, so I don't know how many times a week now. It's like, it used to be like 3-4 times a week, I think, called the Island Hopper. So usually you fly from here and fly to some of the, it's like a 5-stop trip from between here and Guam. Guam's the last stop. One split, and you basically hop on like several different islands in Micronesia, and you can get out and like, you know, get your passport stamp. And it's mostly the reason that flight is designed this way is it's kind of like its lifeline for all these islands. I think I did find one. Fortunately, it's cloudy, so I've been trying to find. There's one. This is one of the stops is Chuck, I believe, or Chuk. Apologize for mispronouncing that. But anyway, I'm gonna load this and I'll keep talking about that. So anyway, so the whole point, so this island hopper originally from Continental Airlines. So before United bought or merged with Continental actually had a hub called, or a subsidiary airline called Continental Micronesia. Sorry about that. And that was based in Guam, and they kind of service more of these smaller islands. A few direct flights like Japan, and usually one to Hawaii. So Hawaii was, quote, the mainland flight, even though technically you're still like another, 6 hours from California. So now you're really on the mainland. But let's say a U.S. state is really what it should stand for. It's like the first U.S. state, so fully functional government of U.S. state over a territory or something. So anyway, but yeah, they had this island hopper route because a lot of these islands, I mean, that's like their lifeblood. And they're not really big economies or anything, but there are still some food and supplies, mail that do come through there. So like, the airline, Continental, now United, basically utilize, basically did the island hopper route. So, there'd be locals that'd be going in between the islands, bring back supplies, sometimes they bring food and stuff. And it's kind of known as a AV geek kind of like thing to do once in a while, because it's the most unique thing. You literally from on your route, you're making 5 stops, and you can get off, and it's not much to see, but it's like going to these very beautiful, middle of the Pacific islands and atolls. And there's one stop, you do stop on a military base, which you can't even get off, or you're even not supposed to take pictures or know the people that will sneak pictures off. So you get to actually visit like a base, way out in the Pacific, which is, as a civilian, there's really no other way you're going to get there unless you're just a contractor in some form or fashion. So, anyway, just a little interesting tidbit there. Look it up. It's very fascinating. There's videos of it. People like Sam Choi, Cugui. Probably just mispronounced. He's done it. He's a YouTuber. The Points guy, which is like a big traveling website's done it. So it's just really cool. They say it's really neat just to kind of fly and see these islands and just the true, vastness of the Pacific Ocean. And then you end up in Guam, and you can spend some time in Guam. And now we're gonna kick it off. Well, eventually, here we go. All right, I'm doing a small plane because it's not gonna. It's not a big island, so we're gonna go. So it looks like we're facing south. Excuse me, and we'll go circle around. This is their main international airport here. It's a public airport. Not a big airport, obviously. But the hub, actually, it's the United Airlines Hub. So when they bought Continental, as I mentioned earlier, they reorganized it and just made it just a United Hub. Like, no subsidiary or anything like that. So, hard to see how well they created, but yeah, so you kind of like just have your main terminal and then obviously gates and private planes and stuff. So, I'm hoping this might look okay, because I know some of the other places I've been in the Pacific have not looked good at all. So, and I mean, You know, it's not like, you know, probably more people flying to Paris and stuff, which I think I will eventually do. But not right now. I kind of want to do some really you know, I've done some places I've been to, and I want to just do something like way off the grid like this for a little bit. So, but anyway, a little brief history of Guam. It's a U.S. territory, and we originally acquired it from Spain in the Spanish-American War. Some of the other islands in the Pacific, like the Philippines, which was a U.S. territory for a while. Hawaii. Actually, I won't say that about Hawaii. I'm actually a lot unsure of that. I do know, I think, like, American Samoa, like, and some of these other Pacific islands in Micronesia, where, you know, there's, like, a couple, like, you know, it's like the Virgin Islands just are based. I think those were Spanish. That was Spanish territory at the time. But Guam was probably was one of the more notable ones, because, hey, it's the biggest island in Micronesia. And you can see it's not huge by any means, but it's a good-sized island here. And it's, if you think about it, where it's kind of placed, very strategic as well, and I'll go that in a little bit. But anyway, so yeah, so we got it from the Spanish Americans, and it's weird. I was looking online. It didn't really officially became a U.S. territory, like the current definition, until like the 60s. But it was still like a colony. So I think that was it. I think it was a colony, and now it's a territory. And the territory, they have more of an established, you know, their government is very similar to let's say, any government you would find in the U.S., like, you know, states around the state side and so forth. They have their own, like, U.S. passport, but it says U.S. Overseas Territories passport. And you see that, like, the British, Great Britain does the same thing as well. So, hold on 1 second. So it's going to, let's see, it's going to, right, there we go. So anyway, I was saying, so it's like, it's in the 60s I was reading, so that's when it kind of became an official U.S. territory and stuff. But anyway, in between that, it obviously became a very strategic military hub, especially for the Navy and Air Force, and eventually Air Force nowadays. And to give you a sense how strategic it was in World War II, right after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, they literally took Guam and, like, within the next day. Like, they were ready to attack it after Pearl Harbor. And they occupied, and I think I was reading it was like 31 or 33 months. So roughly, you know, over about 2.5, almost 3 years, really. They occupied, and they actually, fortunately for the locals here, because, you know, the military got pushed out and lost. But for the locals here, you know, they were basically treated like slaves. They were put in, like, camps and stuff, you know, work camps and so forth. I don't know if slave is the right word, but you get the idea. You know, they were basically, they were not treated like, let's say, like a typical, you know, proper prisoner of war. They were put in prison camps and so forth, and did, you know, basically hard labor until the U.S. got it back in '44. You know, the Battle of Guam. And I was looking at this online. It was really interesting. So the Battle of Guam was really bad. Like, not bad, like, you know, like, oh, you know, it was bad because of the deaths. I think it said like 72,000 Japanese died in the battle. And, you know, it's because it was also Imperial Japan as well, so it was like, you know, fight to the death. You know, it wasn't, oh, let's, all right, we're gonna surrender, you know, try to protect our people, you know, like, protect my soldiers and try to get out of this. You know, where, you know, okay, we can live for another day. No, it was just like fight to the bitter end. And it was really bubbling. I'm trying to look online here to see, I'm just looking at my phone. I'm curious how many, you know, what was the American toll as well? So, oh, I'm sorry, not 72. I was way off. It was 18,000, but very notable though. 18,000 people died in this battle just for this island. And we'll zoom out here at this map. You know, good sized island, but, you know, compared to Hawaii or, you know, any of the big ones, it's not massive by any means. So I'm trying to see how many American soldiers died, and 3,000 Americans died, but 7,000 were wounded. So let's get a little low here. I can't really see this. Looks like I wonder if this is part of the Navy over here, or is this kind of like a little marina where boats come in and stuff. There we go. So, yeah, it was a bloody battle, you know, just to get this island. But, you know, as I said, it's very strategic, especially you think about in World War II. Well, this won't show it, but you know, you're only like I think about 4 hours on a modern plane. So I can't think in World War II terms, but in a modern plane, you're only about 4 hours to Japan. I think 4 or 5 hour flight. And the reason I know that I've looked into it, so you know, besides the military, the only other notable industry is is tourism, which is usually from like people from Asia, and I'll get on that in a little bit. So, but yeah, we'll go back to the battle. I'm trying to find. There was one interesting note here, and I can't remember the year exactly, but there are stories. If you look online, there's stories about these Japanese holdouts. So there were soldiers in Japan in World War II who didn't get captured or died, but they were like hiding out, basically, you know, in territories they used to held before they lost it. They still think, you know, in their head the war was ongoing. And there was one holdout they found in the jungles of Guam, which makes me wonder where, because it's a pretty developed island. But this is in the 70s when they found them. They found them, I think, in 72. It's been 28, yeah, 44. Yeah, it's been 28 years, so yeah, they've been right. So they found him in 1972, 28 years after the war, and then he officially surrendered. So he was officially still at war. You know, this holdout soldier, they found who was hiding out in the jungle and surviving out there for 28 years. And there's a few other stories like that in some of the other islands and places in the Pacific as well. But that's just crazy to think about. This guy was literally hiding out, like, you know, it could be up in these mountains here, who knows, honestly, until they found him, and he, you know, officially surrendered. He found out, well, you know, the war's been over for 28 years. Japan lost, and you know, at the time when he went back, you know, can't imagine the shock, because you know that's right in the beginning of that was really the beginning of the heart of the Japanese bubble economy was starting to form. But their economy was exploding, and they were becoming very modern. You know, technology is really taking off. I mean, when you were captured, I mean, you know, when they lost, when he was there in 1944, I mean, they didn't even have jet airplanes. He gets back, he got Boeing 747s. Yeah, because it was in the 60s. They were around the same time. They developed the Concorde shortly after, around that same time. They had more computer technology. Again, not compared to anything like today, but just, and then you look at that, you know, Japanese cars were taking off with Toyota and Hondas. I mean, it's just, you know, Mitsubishi, which used to make planes and, you know, be part of the military complex, is now making cars and appliances and other stuff. So it's just, can't imagine the shock and how long it took him to truly adjust. So, you know, we're kind of just flying over, get a sense here. You know, it's pretty, you know, I know back around the airport is a little more dense, but it's pretty sprawled out here. You know, little neighborhoods and houses. Most of the population is still pretty native to the island, from what I read. You know, like native roots to the original people here, or, you know, I guess you can say mixed culture, you know, between the time of being, you know, being a Spanish colony for a long time as well. But not like, it isn't like you know, it says 7% wide, so it isn't like a bunch of Caucasian Americans have occupied this island. It's like 50% wide, or, you know, something, let's say, a lot more diverse. You see, like Hawaii, for example. Here it's a lot more native. So I actually kind of see what this is. It's interesting. It's like little shacks and some, I wouldn't say farming, but, you know, like big open fields and stuff, and it's a little more developed here. Actually, I shouldn't say these are shacks. These could be houses. It's just really hard to tell with the way I can tell that the way they're autofilling this is probably not the best representation right now. Yeah, we're almost around the southern island. We're gonna circle back soon. Ah, excuse me. Anyway, so a little more modern history. You know, now we're past World War II. Just, you know, a little, you know, I mentioned it became official U.S. territory in the 60s, and obviously probably the main reason for that is because of its strategic location. It is this is a huge Air Force base up here. I wish I know. I should have looked it up. There's got to be. Ooh, is that a Navy ship? No, that's a island. I know there's got to be like a probably notable Navy presence as well. It might be part of the Air Force base. You know, it could be like, you know, here's the Air Force base, but there's also like a big port for Navy personnel and so forth. But, you know, if you look at the location, which unfortunately this will not do justice right now, but it's very strategically located when you think about U.S. interests, especially in regards to military. So, like, it's, as I mentioned, it's only a few hours drive, but you look at, it's, you know, it's basically just outside of Eastern Asia. I mean, I don't know if they technically call it part of Asia or Oceania, to be honest. I always get a little mixed with, because Oceania is not a continent, but it's kind of like, when you look at the maps of Asia, they don't really seem to include too much like the islands that are way out in the middle of the Pacific, in between, the Western Hemisphere, between, let's say, America and Japan, for example. But you'll just look at the location. It's like perfect. I mean, you're only a few hours from Japan. You're only a few hour flights from Korea. China's there. You have the Philippines, and you think about it at the time, because the Philippines was also like a U.S. territory colony, but they gained their independence shortly after World War II. We transitioned that, but it was still, the U.S. had a huge presence also in the Philippines. And so had a major military base, and you had the one in Guam, and you had the one in Korea, and you had the one in Okinawa. I mean, you really had like a big, military presence. Guam almost being like the eastern edge of it before you got back into the, around Hawaii, basically the other side, across the ocean a bit. So, like I know a good friend of mine, his dad was stationed in Guam, Japan, the Philippines. So, it really shows there's a big kind of Pacific theater where, there's a lot of major U.S. presence, and understandably so, because, we disarmed Japan. We kind of really became, in a sense, like their military force to an extent. They got their own defense force, but, like, if there's anything that, a war or something happened, let's say China or something happened, then there's a large presence. And same with Korea. Due to the Korean War, we have a large presence in South Korea. So that's why we have a base there. But at the same time, with the Pacific operations, it's like, okay, we have Guam and the Philippines, or Philippines until the early 90s. So it's kind of like, all right, we have additional presence in case more happens, especially during the Cold War era as well, which leads into Vietnam. Because, China became communist, and then that's why we got involved in the Korean War, because we're trying to prevent the whole Korean Peninsula becoming communist, and then it became split. And then, eventually it became the Vietnam chapter of the Cold War. And Guam and, like, the Philippines were very strategic for deployment. A lot of Americans would be coming from America, would go first, like, either Guam or the Philippines to kind of, like, basically get established and then get redeployed when they're, like, official assignments, out in Vietnam. Or, in case they need to be deployed, let's say, into Korea or Japan on one of those major bases. So, it's interesting. It looks like the southern part here is a lot more, countryside here. I don't see, beautiful little mountains here, or hills, I guess. I'm not entirely sure the elevation. But yeah, not much development. It looks like, maybe a little around the island, but no, it's pretty sporadic here. I'm curious if these are like forest preserves and stuff, or like a jungle preserve. I bet it'd be very beautiful to like hike around this if you can. Start heading back north. Yeah, because I remember looking at the map. I think most of the population's up in, between here and here, because you have the military base here and so forth. So, but but Guam was a big. I mean, actually, even today, it's, for its purpose, more for the Cold War, but now it's, look at what's happening, with China trying to expand into, contested waters. Obviously, the political issues with China, not just between the U.S., but also with our allies and their neighbors, such as South Korea and Japan. The way things are going in the Philippines. This island is going to remain very important, for years to come. It'd be interesting if ever truly gets statehood or not, and that's more. It'll probably get more into a political debate, unfortunately, when you think about it. But if you look at what's interesting to read about Guam, the people, as I said earlier, it's still very native in terms of their people. It's not, it's not like, it isn't like, let's say, culture diverse, where it's a lot of mixed people from the mainland. It's literally very heavily still, related to the original, the native ethnicity of Guam. And then the next big drawing is like 26% Filipino, which is not too far from me. I think it's only like a 2 to 4 hour flight roughly. I think I looked at it once, just kind of curiosity. Yeah, I look at this stuff all the time. It's just interesting to look at. So it'd be. But anyway, and you read about it. It's very pro-American. Like they really like being part of the U.S. They really like the military being there. Has served a good purpose. Not, obviously there's going to be, some mixed issues. You read there are people that want to be independent and so forth. But overall, it's a pretty, from what I've read, it's still mostly positive thoughts and appeal of being in the U.S. But yet, at the same time, we don't give them, like, true U.S. citizenship. So it's like, it's weird. You read they fall under like U.S. government and protection, at least with regards to like traveling and so forth. So like, if you live in Guam, if you're a native of Guam and you go overseas, and let's say you got in trouble, you can work. The U.S. Embassy will work with you because you're part of the territory. But you cannot vote in the presidential election. But you can vote in the presidential party. So the parties, primaries, you can vote in that and they'll have delegates, and you can vote for a non-voting member of Congress as well. So you have a member that's usually in Congress, but he really has no power besides just bringing up some issues, and maybe he gets a little sway when there's something going on with the military expansion like that, obviously. So it's kind of like, they get all this. We have a country that's very pro-America, likes being part of it, but we don't really give them much sway. And maybe part of me saying I think they should. I think it's it's a lot. It's probably the most developed U.S. territory, arguably, because I know we can maybe say Puerto Rico, but you look into it, they haven't had issues with their budget. There hasn't been as many corruption issues. It's a pretty calm island. And at the same time, I think it's cool how it would be, it would be the other side of the time zone. It's on the date line. It's on the other side of the date line compared to Hawaii. Hawaii is like one of the last islands. It's like Sunday, while over here this is 8:30 a.m. on Monday morning. So anyway, those are just kind of my thoughts. So Kuala Lumpur looks like we're gonna have like a. Actually, no, they haven't. I don't know what these town names are, honestly. Oh, have we finally found our first golf course? Yeah, because I know outside of the military, the next big thing is apparently tourism. Those are their two main. It's basically their bread and butter. Yeah, that's a golf course. Let's just go over and see how this looks. Yeah, it looks like there's another one over there as well. A little farmland, maybe. Yeah, nice little golf course. Yeah, you see, the main airport's back over here. I'm probably going to land on the Air Force Base. That'd be kind of cool if I can. See if I can. It'd be funny if you can. Interesting. So this course kind of extends over here. That comes back. We've seen that design before. Yeah. Oh, I'll actually need to link this in the description. There's this is kind of cool little documentary. It's a YouTube documentary, and not like political conspiracies. This guy does more like just more trivia, fun facts. He did a thing about Guam, and his buddies went there. I talk about the history, but it was interesting. We did videos, looking around. He goes at first glance, you see like, your American stores, your American shops, the same signage, like, what I mean by that. And you go overseas, like the walk sign or the yield, the stop sign would look a little different. Same purpose, it's just like a slightly different aesthetic look to it. It's just harder to describe unless you've traveled a bit overseas. You kind of just see those little changes, same with like the crosswalk signs and so forth. But you watch his video in Guam, it looks exactly like that. Like it really looks like he's in Hawaii actually, or in like Florida. Then you realize, no, he's in Guam. He's in the territory on the other side of the world, completely, thousands of miles from the mainland, basically. Actually, I'm trying to think. I think it's a good 5-6 hour flight from Guam to Hawaii, I believe. I think now I remember. The channel is called Winover Productions, highly recommend. It's just cool little history and tidbit stuff videos, you know, or it'd be stuff like he just uploaded something about the airline industry and how COVID's really turned their entire excuse me, economic model upside down. Yeah, you see here, we're now kind of back, you know, near the main airport, but definitely more the populated part of the island. Pretty fascinating. I didn't realize this whole area is more, you know, I just only looked at the history. I actually decided to surprise myself, see how the island may look in terms of like the layout and where people are. You know, just kind of a lot more just like mountainous, you know, rural area over there. I mean, like I said, I'm not flying too high. You can literally just see east to west easily. Like, I know you can probably do that in Hawaii as well. But like Japan, no way. I mean, Japan's a lot bigger. It's like the size of California. Oh yeah, so I mentioned, I did mention earlier, you know, we're just now in earlier about the different shop, you know, like a lot of the American shops and so forth right here. And that's actually kind of why tourism is also kind of like another big factor for Guam. So you look at their tourism, it's not really coming from the U.S. You know, maybe from Hawaii. You know, you're at least in the Pacific, but there's no direct flights from LA to Guam. There's no, you know, it's just, you know, Hawaii. If you want to get to Guam, you got to connect in Hawaii. You connect to United or I think maybe Hawaiian Airlines. I know United flies, but otherwise that's about it, I think. But it does have a decent amount of flights, and not a lot, but also from Asia. So a lot of Japanese, and Korean visitors come to these islands. And one reason is because they can get American type goods, you know, like clothing and stuff. Sometimes even cheaper, you know, at least for the product. And of course, you're gonna go on vacation. You can add some, you know, justify the cost of getting to Guam. It's like I can go on vacation and get some, you know, let's say American clothing or brands I can't easily find back in Japan and Korea. Even though I saw quite a few, but you know, hard to say, you know, exactly, you know, what they're looking for. But that really drives a lot of their tourism. Now, what's interesting, during that went-over video, it was made, I think, 2-3 years ago. It was made a few years ago. You know, not too long, but at least a couple years ago. This is kind of like when Korea was really kind of testing the missile program again. And, you know, they kind of mentioned they had the, you know, they can hit Guam, basically, you know, the U.S. territory. That's the whole threat, because it's, you know, it is still a U.S. territory. It's defended as a U.S. territory. The U.S. military's here. So, but when that happened, it lost quite a bit of tourism, and just, you know, the travelers dropped. But ironically, when the few travelers that did kept coming was Koreans, because they're kind of already used to having the loud, you know, rowdy neighbor next door, you know, being a nuisance, and not, you know, I should say not taking it seriously, but it's just almost like the same dog and pony show basically in their heads. But a lot of the Japanese people stopped going because, you know, they're concerned if maybe if it did get hit if they were there and stuff, and it's understandable. But yeah, it really kind of. But again, it just shows you the significant importance of its location and why Guam is a important territory. So. That said, you know, I haven't really gone into like what to see in Guam. Because unfortunately looking into it, I'm not, it's almost like really the sites is basically just the beautiful Pacific Island. Like there's beautiful forests, beautiful trails, you know, you do have some, you know, you have some beaches here, you know, and there's going to be resorts I think I like around here. It might be some up north as well. No. So this would be, this is like your resorts down here and so forth, I believe, when I looked at the map one time. So that's kind of like why you go to Guam. It's just kind of, you know, it's basically just a relaxing island getaway. You know, not in terms of like museums. You know, I'm sure there's some stuff, but nothing. There isn't like there's going to be the Louvre or anything, let's say, globally that you can just think on top of your head. You know, so anything like that. But you know, just when you get to a tropical island getaway, that's probably a very, you know, somewhat different experience from Hawaii. I mean, this would be it. And at the same time, I'll say this: if you know, if you go here and then you're only like a, I wouldn't say short, but moderate, you know, like a decent flight, you know, from here to Japan and so forth. It's not like it's taking another 9 hours from Hawaii or 12 or 10 to 12 hours from the mainland of the U.S. It's basically, You know, just get like in a typical 737 or, you know, maybe something a little larger, like a 757 plane, like a typical domestic style plane, you'd be in another country all of a sudden. Alright, let's, there's that Air Force base. Oh, looks like a little hiccup. There it goes. It'd be funny if you told me no. Oh, I can't. Alright, I'm going to zoom in here to see if I can figure out if R is on the ocean or it's inland. I can't do that. That looks like 24 to me. That's fine. Oh. And fly a little more over. Kind of interesting. These look more like farmland over here. Yeah, slow down the engine a little bit. There's the big Air Force base. I haven't seen them. I know they've done a good job, like repaint. Like, I think I read they did repaint like every airfield's like grounds and stuff. But then like, you know, I'm looking at this. You know, assume you know between the two, these look like hangars. Some offices. And I'm curious if there's barracks in the middle there or not. Now that looks unique. Fortunately, I can tell they're using the AI to create it, so I can't get a good sense what that is. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't know that. I just kind of felt like picking a random island to check out and was like, oh, it's 8 o'clock in Guam. Let's check it out and talk a little history. Another golf course over there. Not too far from the military base. No. I don't want to take a guess how far that is in regards to... I mean, this looks it. It looks like farmland in the middle of trees. Then again, I know sometimes they put different satellite images together, so sometimes it's usually a little more complicated. Actually, one of these are... I think these are supposed to be houses. These could be part of the military base. It's all like very individually. I can see the imaging didn't do a good job. Same with that. A little like main strip there. Nice cool. I got the ocean right there. Beaches. I mean, this is very tropical. I mean, look at this. Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong flying out a little bit than landing. I mean, with live traffic, it's not too bad. Oh, it's beautiful. I will say, kudos to people that do actually like the long haul flights on the streams and don't take a break. Or, I mean, it'd be on autopilot, but... That's just gorgeous. I mean, just... Even on medium settings, this is just like, look at that. Look at the water. Just beautiful. Reflection. The clouds are amazing. When you think of flying the Pacific, that's what I'm thinking. Or at least, like, truly the Central Pacific. Because, you know, I could be flying over Japan, that's Pacific, but it's not the tropical part of Japan. See how this looks. I feel like I'm kind of low, so I feel like the elevation's off a little bit. I'm about 1,000 feet. A little too much speed here. Alright, here we go. I was like, what is that in the middle? I was like, okay, that's not a runway. I would say it's a lot easier doing this with the computer because I can actually see the ground on the computer. Alright. Oh, we're going pretty slow. There we go. Ooh. That didn't go so well. Ooh. Very interesting how white. It's very bright here. Alright. There we go. This is cool. I'm on a military base. That's so cool. Careful. Yeah, this is parking the plane. They actually did a pretty good job. I feel like this is how it looked like with the hangers and so forth. So basically, this weird looking thing is just grass. Oh, I see. These are parking spots as well for planes. Which would make sense at an Air Force base, you know. It's not like a trailer, we don't need like a terminal and stuff. They'll just be on the ground, you know, ready for takeoff. I wish I'd stopped telling me. Incorrect header. Now that said, I'm having a hard time believing these are the actual planes in the military base. I would assume they've been more like military jets, not commercial little propeller planes that you would see at a private airport. Oh no. Almost. Just gotta get it right. There we go. Alright, we're good to go. Let's see if I can figure out how to turn this off. Nope, that's not it. Actually, no, I never did figure this out. Oh, anyway. I hope you guys enjoy a little brief flight around Guam, and, take care.